Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University.
Welcome. I, Assistant Professor Mayur Thakur, welcomes you all in the video lecture series for the Master of Arts in the paper of English Language Teaching. Today we are going to discuss the block number 2 in Literature for Language Teaching paper, and the very first unit in that block is Introduction. So let us begin from our Chaitanya studio. We are going to discuss the following contents in today's session. The very first that we are going to discuss is the objectives of this lecture, then what will be the learning outcomes, then introduction of the text, importance of teaching literature, challenges of teaching literature, and then we practice some questions, and at the last we'll sum up. So let us begin with the first part, that is learning outcome of this lecture. So in this session we are going to discuss that how ELT, which is a very evolving field of literature nowadays. Right now we have seen that there are so many methods available, so many approaches, and so many techniques are day by day coming in the academia for the improvement of learning English. And right now people are getting involved in so many things. So in today's session we are going to just introduce ourselves with this another approach, that is literature, that how literature helps us to improve our language, especially the English. As we, most of the learners who are learning right now English, it is their second language, it is not their mother tongue. So after this lecture we'll discuss what we are going to discuss is the correlation between literature and learning of the language, and then we describe the meaning of the term literature, that how literature affects our life and also it impacts how positively in our lives. Now we'll also relate the purposes of using literature for language teaching. Then we also utilize literature to develop linguistic competence, and then we'll choose an appropriate literary text to enhance linguistic skills. Now let's look at the objective of today's session. To describe the connection between literature and language learning. Mostly what we do since our KG, we can say since our school days, what we are doing, that we have started learning English. Most of the learners started learning at the very early age, and what they start with poems, then short stories, then they begin with grammars. The very first thing they learn is grammar, and then step by step teacher started going on spellings, then they work on word formation and so many activities that they do which help them to improve their English. And after that, each and every standard the number of short stories, poems increases, and there is a prose section and there is a verse section divided into in every text there is two sections, one is prose and that is verse. So that's how a child learns. Another objective is to meaning of the term literature. What is the term literature, how it relate to each other. That explains the objectives of using literature in a language classroom. So then as a student of language, what we expect and what we learn from literature, that we are going to discuss in this session. Now another thing is that illustrate the advantages of using literature in a language classroom. And the other objective is identify the challenges, which is a very important point in this session, that what are the challenges of using literature in the language classroom. Now let us begin with the introduction. So in its broadest sense and the simplest words, what we understood is that anything that is written is literature. As per this definition, writings that express ideas of universal importance or interest, as well as a printed matter like a leaflet, circular, a news article in a magazine or a newspaper, or we can say a Facebook or WhatsApp message, can be called a literature. According to one of the Britannia, the encyclopedia, which says that the term applies to imaginative works of poetry and prose, which have been written with specific intentions and have been considered valuable for their aesthetic sense. In this sense, literature can be classified into two categories, that is prose and verse, which we call poetry. Now, prose, as we know, that it includes literary works like drama, one-act play, short story, novel, essay, biography, autobiographies, etc. And on the other hand, poetry includes lyric, sonnet, ode, epic, elegy, limerick, ballad, etc. Whether it is imagination or experience, every piece of literature requires language to express. On the other hand, the existence of language also depends on literature, whether it is oral or written. Initially, both existed in oral form and gradually they took written form. Now, if you look at that, what is the importance of teaching literature in nowadays? Mostly, as we are very much aware of the fact that 21st century is an age of science and technology. But in this age, what is the importance of teaching literature and how it can make us a better human being in nowadays? Now, let us see. So, it is very aptly said by Ludwig Wittgenstein that the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. So, in other sense, the term the term here world encompasses the personal, academic and professional world. Good command over language and the ability to use it well makes many things easier for a person, be it expressing oneself, persuading or understanding others. Now, if you see language as a tool for communication, it plays a very crucial role in the personal and professional life of any individual. It helps in expressing one's ideas, emotions, experiences, and intentions, and thus remaining connected to everyone. However, truly speaking, language is much more than this. It is, in fact, an individual's identity and helps society and culture survives across the ages. As we know that mostly the literature that today we have, it is developed since, we can say, ancient times. In every era, we find the presence of literature. Thus, we can say the language is taught everywhere to enable all to express and understand explicit and implicit messages. Knowing a language, thus, is very crucial. Knowing more than one language broadens one's prospects in this local world, but knowing more than two, and that too if the language is English, it is almost believed to make one's path very easy. Hence, English is one of the most sought after languages across the globe and is also taught in schools and higher education institutions. And this is the importance that the language is being taught basically to advance one's prospects in the academic as well as professional world. Now, it is the language of communication. As we know, English is a very language of communication, business, research and technology at the national and international levels. Knowing and using English comfortably and correctly easily earns one due importance among the group of people one is working with. Hence, everyone tries to master or at least be comfortable in using it. As a teacher of English, we need to ensure that learners develop adequate competence in the use of English to achieve their aspirations. Over the years, principles, methods, and approaches to language learning, teaching, and testing have kept on evolving. One thing, however, has been agreed upon by all the theorists is that literature can play a pivotal role in developing language skills. So, this is the literature, how it impacts in terms of language teaching, how we can see the importance of teaching literature, which is very significant today. Now, if you see that in academics, literature is not merely a world of fiction or non-fictional works, it paints life through language. It would also not be wrong to say that life lives through literature. That as we must aware of the very famous quote by Matthew Arnold, who says that literature is nothing but a criticism of life. Now, literature lets you peep into the past and know the life and time that has passed, offering an opportunity to study culture and history in an interesting way. It allows readers to look at a situation and time from various perspectives and thus develops a better understanding. It is a kind of unofficial document containing the cultural, social, political, and religious history of a society and a kind of tarot card predicting the future of society. Last but not least, literature creates a scope to experience more than one life at a time and develops a greater understanding to appreciate a fellow human being. And if you see these situations, that these are the things which makes literature a different subject from the others. Now, if we see the practice of using English literature to teach the English language is not a new trend. Way back in 1828, if you look at the history, English was offered in 1828 as a subject for the first time at King's College London, which focused on the study of English language with the help of literature. In upcoming slides, we'll understand what are the advantages of teaching literature. Before that, let us complete the historical part. So, in 1828, King's College London first offered English literature as a subject. Now, which was focused, and that subject was focused on the study of the English language with the help of literary works of English. English literature then was used as a source of linguistic examples. The language used in literature is a kind of authentic record of the language used by people across the globe. Being an excellent source of authentic material and deliberating about fundamental human issues and emotions, it is easier for people to relate to it in one way or the other. Now, let us look at how all these things matters, and after reading so many literary works and understanding this in academia, how it helps us to improve our knowledge of English language. Now, advantages of teaching literature for the language teaching. If we see that using literature in a language classroom offers many advantages, as it is all about the use of language in context. First and foremost, it makes the learning interesting and can contribute in developing all sorts of quotients wise, emotional quotient, spiritual quotient, communication quotient, employability quotient, etc. So in every aspect, it helps to improve our knowledge of English language. In other words, if you carefully selected it, it can ensure the satisfactory development of transferable skills or 21st century skills. Now, as we know that literature has water-like properties and qualities. In addition to being easily available, it can be accessed by all either at a very low cost or we can say free. Good literature can also be made easily accessible to all and specifically to the students. Technological advancement has made it easier to access varieties of literature in varied formats. E-version of various classics and bestsellers are available on web portals like www.gutenberg.org, www.bookborn.com, Open Library, Zlib. So these are some, or we can say there is also another very popular, that is Library Genesis, which called libgen.rs, which is a very good version. And also there is also audio version of the literature is available on the web portals like librivox.org. If suppose we want to listen a particular story or a poem, we can also listen through audiobooks. And there are many sources which helps us to understand from, we can say, e-sources, which helps us to understand. Now, another quotation we can quote, that intake of water helps maximize physical performance. So is the literature. The use of literature in a language teaching it helps. Before going to challenges, we can say in a language classroom accelerates the language learning process and enhances a learner's confidence. So these are some important advantages which we can see that how literature helps us to improve somebody's language. It can be used to develop receptive as well as productive competences of learners. The following skills can be developed using literature in a language classroom. The very first is comprehension. We have seen that there are so many comprehension passages given in every exam to sort it out, and there are so many questions asked from 4 to 5 questions asked from each and every paragraph. So that is called comprehension. We have seen that in every kind of exam, there is a one questions regarding the reading comprehension. Now, the another advantage, that is understanding language in context. The literature also helps somebody to understand grammar and punctuations. Punctuation marks like where is comma, where is full stops can be used, what are the grammatical mistakes can be seen in the in any sentences. So these are another, we can say, a technical advantage of teaching literature in language teaching. Now, third is building vocabulary, that is word formation. Also, it helps us when we read a novel, when we read any short stories. It it develops our vocab, means the words that we used. Like there are so many words that we learn from reading newspaper, magazines. So it all helps us our vocab. So as much as we read, we come across many things. We come across many new things when we read any text. We come across, suppose we are reading any religious text, then we come across many words related to Bible or any religious book. Suppose we are reading some historical fiction, then we come across so many historical parts of a particular time, whether it is ancient times, medieval times, or modern times. So it gives us knowledge about particular country's culture, how their education system functions. Suppose, well, let's take an example of Hard Times. So Hard Time is a novel. It's a novel written by Charles Dickens, which gives us the depiction of the which completely gives the picture of industrial society of England. Earlier, which was an agrarian economy, but later on it becomes industrial towns. Wherever we see that the kind of emphasis given to science and technology in that text, we have seen that. So that's how a learner can enhance his vocabs, and by reading all this text, and this is how literature helps in every aspect of life. Literature is something that is, we can say, interwoven, which is interconnected in our life one way or the other. We can also connect our daily incidents with so many literary things that already done in past. Now, if you look at the another fourth advantage, that is sentence structures and sentence constructions. So it also helps us to make sentence, how to build a sentence, and also now the E, that is paragraph writing. So when paragraph writing, and the last is summarizing, paraphrasing, all these things matters, and also it helps us to understanding the central idea of any particular text. Note taking, note making, understanding the language functions, then we can say group discussion, debate, developing 21st century skills like critical thinking, creative thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration, teamwork, etc. All these skills can be enhanced by learning of literature. Just like good water is observed to have helped in preventing many diseases and getting rid of many ailments, literature too cures people of certain adverse attitudes and destructive and undesirable mentalities, offering an opportunity to build a positive mindset and broader perspective towards life, people, and situation. Many have gained strength by reading The Plague by Albert Camus during Corona pandemic 2020. So from that book, people can get an idea that what kind of situation that Camus predicted in his works. So that's how it helps people to understand the situation what Albert Camus has predicted many years ago. What we have seen in 2020, he has already imagined in his books 50 years back. So now also reading the autobiography of very famous Helen Keller, which makes one believe that if you desire, you can do it. Having read the poem The Pulley by George Herbert, you will not complain about the challenges of life. Having read the novel Seven Steps in the Sky by Kundanika Kapadia, you would better understand women their their pains and develop a sense of gratitude and respect for every role that she is playing. Now, literature has something for everyone as well as it can be tailored to suit the needs of all types of learners and learning objectives. Its use becomes easier as it is available in various forms and formats. A novel is available in an abridged version, graded series, novels for 4th, 5th, 6th, etc. Like in graders in audio format, in graphic format, etc. Based on the need of the course as well as the level and interest of the students. A choice can be made and the same format can be used to devise various teaching learning activities. The variety caters to the need of slow and advanced learners both and helps a teacher sustain the interest of both types of learners too. In view of the variety of forms it is written in each form can help plan strategies to achieve the desired outcomes. There are letters, travel narratives, one-act plays, poems and their various types, short story and their types, essays of different kinds, epics, etc. Learners can be exposed to various types of text while keeping in mind their levels, needs and outcomes they expected. Now the very important thing we are moving towards, that is challenges in using literature. So in a language classroom, so when we use literature in a language classroom, that what kind of a challenge a person can come across, that we are going to discuss. Now if we see, despite offering many advantages as a tool to teach language, using literature in a language classroom is not devoid of challenges. Lots of deliberation is required in making a choice as well as planning the strategy to use literature in language classroom. Among the challenges likely to be faced by a teacher, choosing an appropriate piece of a literary text or an excerpt of a literary text or the text itself is the first challenge that a teacher would come across. To make a correct choice, one needs to understand and follow the given steps that can help. Now, first, learn about the domain or stage of the what kind of target group that, like whether it is a primary students, secondary students, higher secondary, graduation, etc. Now, the second thing that we should keep in mind, that understand the objectives of language learning. Possible objectives that can be to develop reading comprehension, that what are the objectives that we have finalized. To explain the structure and techniques of paragraph writing, whether it is the objective of the teacher is to give an insight into understanding the function of language, also to illustrate various forms of words and their usages in context, what are to understand the use of language and grammar in context, and the third is the needs, levels and cultural backgrounds of the learners, then what kind of literature that we are going to teach them. And understanding of these three attributes is very important when choosing a, if the need is to learn paragraph writing, choosing a play would not help directly. Even while choosing an excerpt from a non-fictional work, one needs to ensure that the language and content of the selection meet the need of the learner. If the learners are the students of 5 to 7 standards, 5th to 7, then English as a second language, choosing an excerpt from Ruskin's address Traffic delivered to the traders and manufacturers in 1864 would not serve the purpose. Though highly appreciated for its message, the excerpt from the lecture is likely to fail in ensuring the desired learning outcomes for the above referred group. Similarly, Travel by Train by J.B. Priestley would not be that appropriate for this group of students as they would not be aware about the life and culture of English people. In short, it is advisable that while choosing a text for the learners of vernacular medium, the language remains foreign and not the culture or context of the literary text. Thus, instead of choosing a story by Oscar Wilde or Henry or O. Henry or Arthur Conan Doyle, it would be better to select a story by R. K. Narayan, Khushwant Singh or Ruskin Bond. So, Here we can say that instead of selecting the culture of Western countries, it is better if we focus on Indian English writers, which is applicable and useful in choosing literary pieces of other genres. So a learner from India can easily connect himself or herself to the text. Just like in R.K. Narayan's Gateman's Gift, the story of a gateman, which is very beautifully narrated by R.K. Narayan. Anybody from India, anybody Indian reader, any Indian reader can easily connect himself or herself with the text or with that short story. So now the fourth is the another challenge that we are going to discuss, that is to think about the objectives and outcomes of the teaching learning activities. Every teaching learning activity would have objectives as well as outcomes. As we all know that before beginning we have discussed what are the objectives and outcomes. So while choosing the literary piece or any extract, the teacher should assess if the selected literary piece or extract would yield the expected outcomes and help to achieve the objectives. Now the fifth is to know about the hours of teaching available, that how many hours are available. The length of the curriculum and the credit of the course would depend on this. Hence, this information is one of the crucial factors to be taken into consideration while choosing literary text. Now, learn the readability of the text. What is the readability? And after having adequate information about the learners, the next big thing is to assess the readability of the text, which means the ease of the text. It is counted on the basis of the number of words used in a sentence. For example, the length of the sentence and the structures of the sentence, the complexity of the sentence or the syntax structure of the sentence. Studying literature is likely to be more effective and fruit bearing when selection is based on keeping in mind the stated consideration. As we have studied so many things, that what are the challenges and what are the situation a learner can face, or especially the teacher who is teaching. So while teaching English in a classroom, there are so many, that 4 or 5 challenges that we have discussed, that these are the important things keeping while keeping students engaged in any particular text or any, you can say, in teaching any kind of literary work. Now if you see, let's look at some questions on. Now let us see that what we have seen so far. On which of the following web portal one can find an audio version of literary text? Now there is A, that is Gutenberg, B, that is Bookbird, C, that is LibriVox, and D. So these are the options. Now you just need to find out the real correct answer. If you are sure, then please do comment. Comment in the chat box if you know the answer. Now, which of the following is not one of the formats in which a literary text is available? Your options are graphic, audio, third is abridged, and the fourth is expanded. You can also answer this question in the comment. Other practice questions. Which of the following is not always required to make teaching language through literature effective? Your options are use of technology in the class, understanding the needs and levels of the learners, awareness about the cultural background of the learners, and the fourth is knowledge about the availability of time. Another question, which of the following literary work helps you better understand women and their pains? We have just discussed in this session. If you go back in this lecture, you will easily understand. Now, if we sum up the lecture, that formal language learning is very important in academics. It is important not only for the development of professional skills, but also for life values that make a person a better human being as well. In the 21st century, what we have in 21st century, we have seen that communication and business are happening across the world. Learning the English language is crucial. That is the reason why many tools, approaches, and methods have evolved to make the teaching learning process very effective. Even we have seen that every session, we have seen in every aspect, we have seen that in 21st century, what we have seen that right now the language of management, medicine, technology, engineering, everything is going in the form of English. We have adapted English like our day-to-day routine lives, and we have seen that how English literature can help us to understand the English culture and the things that happening across the world very easily if you know this international language. Now we called it international language, though it is not, because it is actually adopted by the people. Now from the session we have introduced ourselves to the role of English literature in language teaching, that how literature can help us to enhance our reading, listening, speaking and writing skills in a very good manner. So any literature, whether it is not just English, but any knowledge, any good knowledge of literature can help you to come to improve your communication, to improve your reading, writing, listening, or any particular thing, the skill that you want to master. Because we see that right now people are appearing for many tests. Which test we have many times we oftenly heard this word called IELTS exam. So in IELTS exam, what we see, people apply for various people appear for various to test their various kinds of skills like productive and receptive, which is listening, speaking, reading and writing. So literature kind of tool can be used to helpful to understand, and if you really want to improve that, do start reading a particular or any text which is in your syllabus or not in syllabus, which is it, and you will experience different kind of things. At the end, I will advise you to just select a particular text which you really want to read, and you will come across very many new words, underline them, then try to find their meaning and trying to use those words in speaking. You will see yourself, you will see the change in yourself, that you are improving day by day. So these are some tips that at the end of this session I would like to give to students. And in the next session we are going to discuss that how different kinds of formats like fiction, non-fiction in literature, poetry, drama, how it helps us to improve our language learning. So thank you all, and we'll see you in the next session. Thank you for joining today's session. We'll see you in the next session. God bless.